Have you ever wondered about the countless UFO sightings that remain unexplained? The encounters with extraterrestrial beings that defy logic and explanation? In this episode, we delve into the lesser known alien encounters that have captured the imagination of people around the world. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
It's alive! Have you checked the children? Get out!
You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. 2 words and 2 question marks.
Wow, that was completely backwards. Sorry about that.
Oh.
That's what happens when you don't hire a proper producer for this crap.
And you finished a bottle of wine before you even start the show.
Well, that could be a possibility as well.
On a completely unrelated topic.
Oh my gosh, have you seen the video of that guy who
What
says that?
I think there's more than one saying
No, this is an old guy and he's talking about myelin and the brain and margarine. No. It's phenomenal. And he delivers it so well, and he's like, so he says it in a way that TikTok will allow, or is that what it's called? TikTok? Yeah, TikTok will. Sorry, my brain's working. That he says it in a way that TikTok will allow it. I will. I'm working on it. But he says, in a separate and completely side note, so that it's not joined, but it's joined. Right. Anywho, how is everybody today? How are you guys?
Great and getting better.
Yeah,
I'm excited for tonight's show. I love it. I love alien shows.
I do too. Aliens are my favorite, I think.
I just think there's so many freaking theories. I feel like there's so much out there.
There's so much evidence for it. I think that it's just the government's all but said that they exist. I mean, they actually have said that they believe that they exist at the very least.
Yeah, I totally think. I think that there's a greater possibility that they exist than they don't.
100% agree.
Good. What about the theory? Oh, is it just quiet? It's so weird. Like our audio is going too well tonight. I don't know what's going on. It's almost worrying me a little bit, but
it's working.
Everything looks good, so I'm excited. We got some big plans for this month, and special announcement for October 1st. I'm really excited. We're going to hold that under our hats for another week, probably, but
you tease.
I am a tease.
That's what she said.
That's not what she said. Anybody who knows me knows that is not true.
Can't argue with that one.
Oh, man. Whew. We're also, our Twitch people get to see a lot, so they know that we're actively looking to move from Spotify into something else, which means good news, bad news. Good news is we will finally be able to track our charts again.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, me too. Bad news is I have 3,000 stickers I need to get rid of in a month. If somebody wants a sticker, I will send you 100 stickers.
Hey, if you donate, you get a sticker for free.
A sticker? I'll give you 100 stickers for free. I will reach in and grab a whole handful of stickers and stuff as many in the envelope as I can possibly
you
stuff
donate
for
over
free.
Tree 50 and we'll give you 1,000.
Oh man, that's crazy. So I was talking to a good pastor friend of mine, and he told me something that I didn't understand. What do you call it when the devil is trying to explain something to you? A demonstration.
I almost picked this one.
The joke was okay.
The laugh.
The
is
laugh.
the best.
A demonstration. Oh my gosh. Woo! Sorry. I just had to get that out.
Not the first crazy cackle, but the second deep. My daughter summed it up well. If we could figure out how to box that and sell it, we'd be rich immediately.
Wow.
How do you get a country girl's attention?
We're no longer just on Twitch. I can't answer that. Go ahead.
Do it! No, I was kidding.
A tractor.
Absolutely. I like it.
I should have picked yours, but then you would have.
Speaking of women and attracting them, I used to date this woman who said that my face looked like the back end of a boat.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't say anything, but I did give her a stern look. Just saying. Apparently you like that one as well.
That's
That was the best one in like 3 weeks, Jerry.
For
Good
those
job.
that don't know, apparently Oak Leaf Vineyards Tropical White encourages that kind of laughter.
Just good jokes,
Thank
unlike
you.
some people.
Oak Leaf. If you're listening, we're looking for sponsors.
I think it's like Walmart brand. I don't
It
even
is.
think it's
Walmart house brand.
Is it really?
It's cheaper than junk. And
Well, the
I don't know if they
White's
still
very
do.
refreshing.
One of our listeners is working at Bluegrass Sabor. A few years ago, before they'd moved, I don't know if they're still doing it, but that was their house wine,
really?
Bluegrass Sabor. It's a very good wine.
The thing with wine is, no matter if you get cheap or expensive, it really doesn't taste that much different. I mean, you can get good cheap wine.
You can, and that's to me is one of the better cheap wines.
That's one thing that sucks about bourbon. Bourbon is,
You can tell the difference in
You
the
can-
cheap and the good.
yeah, you definitely get the alcohol taste in
Yeah.
cheaper stuff.
So the best thing about Twitch is the ability to communicate with the people listening to the show. And
Awesome.
I love when those guests bring jokes to the show. Why are so many people brainwashed?
Why is that?
Because of television.
I like it. Good dad joke.
Woo, woo.
Very good dad joke.
Since we're getting on Twitch regularly every week, should we start trying to hit a time of like
Yes.
what we need
Yes.
to do with
We need to do
what we should
better.
do with
Yes. So let's try to be live on Twitch by 7:30.
Yeah, I think that's
Even if we don't start the show till 8, that gives our
or
Twitch
9
listeners,
9:30.
that gives our Twitch vibe people, you
Right.
know, 30, 45 minutes of exclusive time with
Yeah,
us.
and if you're listening on Spotify, yeah, hit us up on Twitch. Follow
Yeah,
us.
we're on Twitch, YouTube,
Yep.
Spotify, all the things now, and we love listening to you. And in all honesty, everybody always says like and follow and all that stuff. Wherever you're listening, like and follow because it really helps. Jerry the other day, and this is what I mean. Jerry the other day was really bummed because he's like, I went on Google and I couldn't find us anywhere. Some hag with the other newsworthy and she's not a hag.
Erica Mandy.
Erica
That's a good
Mandy.
news broadcast.
Yeah, it really is. But her name is Newsworthy. It's one word. She does a 5 to 7 minute headline news
Yep.
show every single day. So
and
she
was
has
doing
a
it way before we started.
yeah. So she has a ton of content, and she would always be the thing to come up on Google. I was like, Jerry, have you ever download or asked Google for Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry? And he said no, and we did it, and we were the top 5.
Yes.
So it's really important when you guys like and follow us. That helps all the algorithms make people find us easier. So we appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Anywho, so tonight, aliens,
Aliens.
the good stuff,
Aliens that people haven't heard about so much.
right? I don't even know who you're
Not to
covering
Roswell.
tonight.
Say what?
I don't even know who you're covering tonight.
I don't either.
We didn't tell each other.
I
What if
was-
all three of us had picked the
Well,
same?
I
know-
said what I was doing.
Right,
Oh,
I
I
know.
didn't see
I
that.
did.
I
yeah.
looked.
I didn't choose Steve's. I was literally thinking that when we were getting ready. I was like, hope Jerry didn't pick the one I picked. I hope I don't. I
Well,
doubt
you
it.
guys are the only ones that should know. Did you pick the school bus thing?
No.
Okay, then it's not mine.
What did you pick?
But when did yours happen?
In the 40s?
Oh yeah, I'm good. We're good.
It happened when he was a kid.
What? I thought he was
An
like
older
80
kid.
at that
He was
point.
probably in his
I was an
20s.
older kid.
Maybe I'm giving him a little grace. You know what I'm saying?
You're not as old as I thought.
In the 40s. But mine is local.
Oh,
Okay, that's
Kinda.
Cool. That's cool.
It's not the one
Kentucky's.
we talked like the one in
Yeah,
Hopkinsville.
we're
is
about
it?
to find out.
Yeah, tell us about it, Jerry.
Sure. Mantell, UFO incident.
Oh,
On January the 7th of 1948, Godman Army Airfield at Fort Knox, Kentucky, received a phone call from the Kentucky Highway Patrol. There was an unusual aerial object that was near Madisonville, which could not be immediately identified. And they had 4 F-51 Mustangs from the 165th Fighter Squadron that was nearby on a training exercise. And they were told to report and see what the object was. Now, the flight leader was a 25-year-old Captain Thomas Mantell. And when he got close, he climbed to 15,000 feet. He radioed in that the object was metallic looking and of tremendous size.
really?
He continued to climb to 22,000 feet. His wingman did not follow due to lack of sufficient oxygen equipment. Excuse me. He continued to climb, and what we do know is that at a higher altitude than that, he apparently blacked out from a lack of oxygen. His plane shortly after went into a downward spiral, and he crashed. So that's what we know. Now, over 75 years later, Captain Thomas Mantell's flight that afternoon still remains shrouded in mystery. It's very important to remember he's only 25 years old, but he had almost 3,000 flight hours. This happened in 1948. The majority of those 3,000 flight hours was in combat during World War II. Very experienced pilot. 3,000 hours, especially during combat. It's not like he was...
3,000 PIC hours right now will get you a job at at any of the small airlines.
That's all
Yeah.
during combat. Wow, that's awesome.
That's a lot of combat
Yeah.
hours.
What would 3,000 combat hours get you a job at?
Wherever you want to go.
Pretty much
Yeah.
probably wherever you wanted to go.
Hey, as an example, to get my license, I literally had to have 120 flight hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
That's
to fly by yourself?
just to
Okay.
get a private, single engine, bare bones minimal.
All right.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Jerry.
Mantell, no, you're fine. He had already earned the Distinguished Flying Cross and 4 air medals. The point is, he was 25 years old, relatively young, but a very experienced pilot. Now, several hundred people had already called in and that saw the UFO, and he called in to the Kentucky State Police. And from several different locations, it was moving from northern Kentucky down through the southern part. And they were the ones that had contacted the Fort Knox military police, who in turn notified personnel at the Godman Army Airfield. At roughly 2:45 p.m., Mantell radioed the tower. He had spotted the object at 14,000 feet. At 15,000 feet, he provided an update. He said, "The object is directly ahead of me and above me, moving at about half my speed." Now, I'm not sure what the wind speed was that day, but I'm pretty sure that it was nowhere near that of the F-51, which was powered by a 1,500 horsepower Allison engine. The final government story was that it was a balloon. They
That
say
sounds
everything's a
familiar.
balloon, right?
Yeah.
Balloons are not powered. They don't have
Right.
engines driving them. An experienced combat pilot said that this, whatever it was moving approximately half of his speed. I'm sure he'd probably slowed down. Even so, wind speed doesn't get you anywhere near half that of his 1,500 horsepower F-51 Mustang.
If I'm not mistaken, the P-51 Mustang's only military advantage was its speed. Am I wrong on that?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm sure
I
you're
know
probably
the
right.
Zero that Japan had greater agility. It was a low wing plane, but I'm pretty sure it had better agility. But I'm almost positive that the P-51 was faster. Didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
no, you're fine.
I'm going to look that up.
So I was down here.
30 minutes after his 15,000 feet update, he offered yet another update. He says it appears to be a metallic object or possible reflections of the sun from a metallic object, and it is of tremendous size. I'm still climbing. The object is above and ahead of me, and I'm trying to close in for a better look. Now, he continued pursuing. He radioed at roughly 3:30 p.m. and said that he would fly about 10 more minutes, and he intended to go no higher than 25,000 feet. After a few more garbled transmissions, communications ceased. The crash was in Franklin, Kentucky, the same city where he was born, or the odds.
Oh,
That's awesome.
man,
Yeah.
that sucks.
By the way, the incident occurred roughly 6 months after Roswell, to put it into time frame.
What was we doing as a nation to be able to get that many different? I mean, I know that was like a hot time because a lot of people were looking up. Planes were kind of new. If you were in the middle of Nebraska, you didn't see airplanes often.
Right, we're not having that many sightings today.
Right. I just wonder what was going on
Right.
at that particular time. That
Well, there
that
were
attracted
several
that many.
things. First of all, we're a lot more technologically savvy than we were then. The first story was that, and apparently this had happened numerous times before, pilots flying would see a planet, Venus, and think it was a UFO and chase it and go too high. We now have the ability to know where planets are going to be, and the technology advances we've made in the last 70, 80 years have helped tremendously for that. The first story from the government was that he saw and was chasing Venus. Real quickly, when the astronomers got involved and said there was nowhere in the vicinity of where he would have been looking, and it pretty quickly changed to the final story that he died chasing a skyhook balloon. I don't know if you guys have heard of Skyhook. It was a top secret Navy project. It was very top secret, and he would not have known about it. And that was the official story, the last official story from the government. Project Skyhook was a highly classified Navy program out of the Clinton Air Force Base in Ohio. The balloons were huge, high-altitude devices used to gather intelligence and information. The Navy denied that any of their balloons were in the area at the time. Steve obviously disagrees. He's vigorously shaking his head.
Right? Because I see the balloon. I see a picture. I just Googled Skyhook balloon. It's a freaking balloon. An experienced combat pilot is going to see that and say, huh,
That's a balloon.
that's a balloon. It's not like, if it looked like a dirigible or a blimp, okay, maybe that has a little shape to it. It has a
Well,
little...
even then, he's not going to have trouble catching up to it.
Right. Here's what I was going to bring up to you, Jerry. I looked it up. How fast do you think a P-51 will go? Just throw it out there.
250 miles an hour.
A P-51 Mustang will go 437 miles per hour.
No, that's top speed.
Top speed.
I'm sure he wasn't going
With a
anywhere
wind to your
near
back.
top speed.
Absolutely.
But again, there's a huge difference. But let's say he had throttled down to 175, 150.
And
he
he
said
would
it's
have.
going
Let's
half
just
his-
assume that he
Yes.
would have, because he wants to take his time. He wants to see what he's looking at and realize, oh, this is not an effing balloon.
And he said that it was going roughly half the speed of his plane.
Right.
The forecast for that day was that it was relatively calm. There were very few clouds in the sky. There was very little wind. Wind speed doesn't get you anywhere near 75 miles an hour, which is half of what he would have been if he had throttled way down. Yes, ton of questions. So, other accounts suggest that one of Mantell's garbled last transmission claims that he saw people sitting inside the flying object and that his airplane had burst into flames before striking the ground. So we'll probably never know definitively what happened. I would like to say this as a PSA. If you ever decided to go chasing unknown objects miles up into the sky, don't forget your oxygen mask.
Well, today's jets are all pressurized, and if they're not pressurized, you do have access to the mask. But literally, our F-35s can almost go to the freaking stratosphere.
Right.
They're stupid, 35,000 feet or some crazy stuff. But the tech back then was even good enough that he would have known. If it were so this is an experienced combat pilot. I can't for the life of me in any scenario for him to say that is not a balloon. I'm going to continue to push and push and push my my abilities and my everything to try to get a better look at what this thing is. Because he knows what the plane's limits are. He knows what his limits are.
And you know what sucks about this is the government coming out and saying it's Venus or it's a balloon or whatever they say.
You're just demeaning the pilot.
You are
A little bit. Here's part of the story I left out.
Oh.
Again, remember when there was 4 Mustangs? 1 turned back pretty quickly. I forget, there was something else come up. So 3 went to the event, to the UFO, and climbed with him up to almost 22,000. At which point the other 2 said, we don't have oxygen. We're leaving. We can't do this. They knew the limits.
Right.
He, as flight leader, decided to push and got on and called back to control and said, I'm going to 25,000. That was considered extremely unsafe right there.
Sure.
So he was pushing beyond what he should have to go anywhere above the 22,000. And 2 of the other 3 had bailed out and went back to get oxygen masks by the time they come back.
But here's the thing, Jerry.
Yes.
And here's the thing that makes me think that there is no way in Hades that this was a
I'm not
skyhook
disputing
balloon.
that. I'm not disputing that.
The other 3 pilots, the other 2, well, you said 1 bailed, so there was 4 initially. None of them thought it was a balloon. So,
No.
and I'm looking at a picture of a skyhook balloon. That's a balloon. You can't deny that. That's under no circumstances am I thinking this is.
And it wasn't like he was viewing it from a great distance.
Right.
He caught up with it and was chasing,
He was
trailing it for over half an hour.
No
So,
way.
yeah, it sounds like another convenient, let's just color the balloon, which the government tends to do a lot.
right. And yeah, you're sensing a theme here.
I just want to say when Tommy and I were lying out in that field and we saw that light darting back and forth, there's no way that was a balloon. I'm just saying. They may have said it, but it ain't. No. Sorry. Sorry. Wow. The government always uses, it's almost predictable nowadays what they will use.
Wait, I don't think. I think the majority of people just don't even care. I think that's the biggest.
Right.
They just get away with it.
Right.
Like nobody really cares if.
The thing that you sent us,
Oh, shit.
no, I'll find it. The UFO over Canada. How did you send that? Is that in messages?
Yeah. That was either that was in Messenger or on your email.
There's a, when I find it, I want to read something. You guys talk for a minute while I look this up.
Sure, I'll go ahead and cover mine unless you have something you want to do that requires a lot. Mine's kind of small, but it meets Jerry's criteria for stuff that he believes.
Right, reliable witness.
Reliable, many
Multiple
witnesses.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And it's pretty darned exciting. Happened back in 1973 when several members of... what's that say? Sorry. Twitch is cracking me up. I'm sorry. I'm loving Twitch.
I do too. I like it a lot.
I'm loving having that opportunity. So back to my story. In early 1973, while returning home from a high school basketball game, several members of the Piedmont High School team, along with their coach, would witness a very up-close UFO sighting. They wouldn't be the only ones. Other collaborating witnesses, that's not the right word. I can't.
Corroborating.
Thank you. Jerry has to help me with the hard words. Witnesses would also come forward. The sighting would prove to be one of several in the Missouri region during this time. The Show Me State, baby! As they themselves ultimately part of a nationwide wave of sightings in the United States throughout much of 1973. While the majority of the sightings during the 1973 wave occurred in the later months of the year, the Piedmont incident took place in February, and maybe it was a precursor for things yet to come. Between late February and April of 1973, Piedmont police would receive in excess, this is the hard part, are you ready?
Yep.
The Piedmont police received in that small period over 500 UFO reports.
It's a lot of people seeing stuff.
It is. And there's something interesting about Piedmont, and we'll get to that in a second. Perhaps even more bizarre is, as we will look at a little later, they seem to occur on a line of latitude that is synonymous with paranormal incidents and unusual activity. Basically, it's the 37th parallel. The aliens have seen at multiple sites on the 37th parallel. Now, I did a little research. There's no known planetary alignment that pops back to, did they see Venus? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Did they see Mars on the 37th parallel?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen on the 37th parallel. But anyway, so let's talk about this. And I want to give credit where credit's due. I'm reading from UFO Insight, so I want to make sure that they get their credit. But, sorry. So late in the evening of February 21st, 1973, the coach of the Piedmont High School basketball team, Reggie Bone, oh poor boy, knowing he had some, he was a hard man. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Who was his son, Dick Trickle?
I don't know, Jerry. I don't know, but
We're getting a little PG-13 there.
whoo,
I'm just talking about NASCAR. He's a NASCAR driver.
Really?
You don't watch NASCAR?
you're making this
Dick Trickle is one of the better drivers.
I do not.
you're making this a very hard story to cover. I'm just saying.
We're talking about NASCAR? I'm sorry.
Don't make me just spurt it out here, okay?
Yeah, I'm making it hard.
Oh my goodness.
This is all me.
We're spiraling.
I love our show. I'm just saying. So the coach of the basketball team, Reggie Bone, along with, we're all 12 years old. I can't
Yep,
help it.
we are.
Along with two of his staff, three of his players would board the bus following a playoff defeat to the underdog Richmond team by 7 points. The mood on the journey home would be a somber one, to say the least. Once he had everyone on board and all accounted for, they would proceed to Highway 60 in southern Missouri on their way home. I've actually been on Highway 60, believe it or not. Excuse me. The road was lined with heavy forest and would twist and snake in places. If I'm not mistaken, this is down near the Ironton mountain range. They say mountains. It's more like a bunch of molehills, but whatever. Aside from the soft glow of their bus, much of the journey along the way was typically dark country roads of the region. They were around 20 miles outside of Piedmont when the coach first noticed a bright... Sorry.
You need help reading this?
I do. So, this, and I want to read this verbatim. I'm sorry, you guys can see why I'm laughing. They were 20 miles outside of Piedmont when Bone first noticed a bright shaft of light beaming down out of the sky.
Apparently 12-year-olds wrote this article.
You guys are killing me.
Oh my god. You could have reworded that.
What?
You could have reworded
I
that.
could have, but y'all were looking at me like I was stupid, so I wanted you to know. Whatever it was, the coach knew it wasn't a helicopter and an airplane. He asked aloud what the strange glow was, sparking the passengers, the entire bus, to turn their attention to the sky. It appeared to be descending slightly to the left over a field. Stop, Brett. You're
Blowing to the left, huh? Now we're snorting. We went to new levels now.
Oh my gosh.
Brett's killing me here. They could. Whew. I love Missouri. I'm just saying it.
You okay over there?
I've been in Missouri.
They continued toward Bushy Creek.
Oh my god. Is this even real? You just came up with this, didn't you? This
He
your dad?
wrote it.
Golly. I don't think.
My. Send me a link and I'll read this. You're never going to make it
You're
through.
never making it through. Who wrote this stuff? Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh man.
Sorry.
We should have read this one when we were not live on Twitch. Oh my gosh.
Oh, Sarah's killing me. I'm glad she's not here in person. Anyway, they continued toward the Bushy Creek area. As they passed through, one of the player, Randall Holmes, would alert everyone to the object's presence once again. This time, the coach would pull the bus off to the side of the road. Then he and two of his staff and the players would all exit the vehicle to get a closer look. Whew. As they looked on in awe at the fascinating scene unfolding before him, they could see the object only 200 yards away. Although they couldn't determine an actual shape due to the otherwise pitch black that engulfed them, they were able to clearly see the lights. The coach would then claim to see 4 lights that looked like portholes: red, green, amber, and white. They would estimate these lights to be 3 or 4 feet apart from each other. Furthermore, they appeared to be in perfect line, suggesting that it was perhaps a cigar or dish-shaped craft. It was still in the air, hovering around 400 feet above the ground. The players and the coach remained silent and motionless, watching this otherworldly light show. The object remained motionless for about 10 minutes, and then, without warning, would shoot directly up and out of sight. All would report that it made no noise whatsoever. How many times did we hear that?
Right.
Every time. Every single time.
It seems like a lot of these we hear a lot of the same.
Yeah.
Cigar shaped is very common.
Yeah, right.
No
the guy
sound.
in Florida that I was looking for, we're going to post his story very soon, that was fishing and had the huge cigar shape. Although they didn't know it at the time, about 12 miles away in Mill Spring, Edith Boatwright was just preparing to go to bed when she noticed the strange lights of a low-flying object outside of her home. It was a little after 10 p.m. when Edith recalled noticing a flash outside the bedroom window. As their home was next to the highway, she thought maybe the flash was just, a car driving by. She left her bed, went over to the window, when she could see the strange craft outside, moving, almost completely silent. She did report a whoosh sound. Edith would further state that, "I think there were people in it. I could see objects moving around, but I couldn't make the form of any one person." She watched it for several moments before it vanished from her sight. Following the events of February 22nd, came another sighting in the same region as the Piedmont High School team incident. While driving in the Bushy Creek area of Piedmont, Roy and Beth Birch and Kathleen Keith would also report strange green, white, amber, and red lights. They would even attempt to catch up with the strange object, at one point traveling over 70 miles an hour, but were unable to keep up. Many other people in the creek area would also report that same sighting. On the 26th, Pat Tony and Will Freeman would report a luminous object near the Tip Top Mountains. They would report it as solid with prongs on it, and it had a red light. On March 1st, Earl Turnbauer was driving along Highway 49 a little after 9 p.m., and he would report that he had just driven over a hill when an object lit up like a circus hovering just ahead of his vehicle. In what was only a second, the object vanished completely out of sight. Turnbauer would also witness another strange craft on the 14th of March driving through the same area. A thunderstorm sent rain crashing down on all below. He would notice an amber light in a field running alongside the road. He would bring his car to a halt and watch the object for around 10 minutes. He would later recall that when the lightning flashed, I could see a dome shape with sort of an antenna at the top. Turnbauer believes that the amber light was the tip of this antenna. He would also note that it wasn't making any noise at all. In the following week, Turnbauer would witness yellow, green, red lights moving over the Brushy Creek region as he tended his cattle.
You mean the Bushy Creek?
Yes. What did I say?
Brushy.
Oh, bushy. I was trying to not break out into a cackle of laughter again. Anyway, March the 14th, 11 p.m., same object. March 21st, Kathy Leach, Gene Coleman on the Clearwater Dam witnessed the same object. And on the afternoon of March 22nd, around 4:30 p.m. in broad daylight, two Southeast Missouri State students, Joe King and Ron Miller, were driving along Highway 34. They were around 8 miles outside of Piedmont when they saw an oval-shaped craft in the sky just above the trees. They could see it clearly enough to be of metallic material. It contained a flat underside and a dome on top, much like Mr. Turnbauer had said. On the same day at 7:30, radio newsman Dennis Kinney would claim to see a bright orange glowing from white to orange, bright orange light glowing from white to orange. His colleague, Gary Sutton, even managed to capture several pictures of the item, and they were very similar to pictures taken by Maud Jeffries.
So, did these pictures ever get posted anywhere? Or?
There's a picture here, and it looks very bland. I don't know what you say.
Oh, okay, yeah. What are you gonna? Yeah.
But you also have to remember this is in the 70s, so everything is...
Yeah, people don't really have cell phones.
There's no
Cameras
cell
are not
phones.
that great.
Right. So,
And
good
honestly, somebody who had a camera, that's pretty lucky.
luck. Very lucky.
Because how big were cameras back in the 70s? Jared, you probably know best.
Yeah, you were what, in the 60s back then?
Yeah, cameras weren't common at all. There were no,
So when did
obviously cell
disposable?
phones.
Because I remember when I was a kid, disposable cameras were really big.
Well, they weren't when I was a kid. What was very popular was Polaroid had come out.
Okay.
Polaroids had come out, but the little disposable cameras themselves, no, those didn't exist.
Just a little. I don't want to go off too much, but my 4-year-old, she's just got her first Polaroid camera.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, she loves it.
I bet so.
And her pictures have gotten better over
Yeah.
time. It's been pretty cute to watch. But anyways,
Well, so in the 70s, Polaroids were just coming out, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you did have a camera in the 70s, you were probably well off.
yeah.
And
I wonder how much
Polaroids
those
were
cost.
horrible resolution.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I mean, they
for
still are.
close up, much less.
I'm gonna look up.
While you're looking that up, earlier I was talking about the thing that you sent. Steve sent me a link the other day, or today. And the article is about Canada saw this UFO object, contacted the United States, said, if you don't mind sending a couple jets up, take a look at this thing. United States jet shot down, one of our fighter jets shot down this.
Does that look like a balloon to you?
Well, I mean, here's the picture.
Doesn't look like a balloon. I saw it. I'll send it
There's
to
a
you. I
picture.
know.
It doesn't look like a balloon.
But that's not the reason that I was mentioning this article. We were talking about why the government isn't truthful. With this article was a copy of an email. And one of the military officials said this: should the image be released, and I'm quoting, Should the image be released, it would be via the Canadian Armed Forces social media accounts. Given the current public environment and statements related to objects being benign, releasing the image may cause more questions, confusions, regardless of the text that accompanies. So it wasn't saying to lie, but it was basically saying, what other option do we have? I think this is the government's response every time. That's why we always hear it's a balloon. I think they think about it, they talk about it, and they're like, well, we're just going to scare them and confuse them, so let's lie and tell them it's a balloon.
I don't understand that.
I don't either. I agree.
Everybody pretty much believes that there's aliens. I mean, it's pretty much a fact at this point. Like, what? Nobody. There's not mass chaos. Like, nobody's really freaking out. They just want
Be honest,
the government to just
transparency.
right. And this is just one more thing leading to distrust in the government.
Totally agree.
So there's several other sightings that happened within this 1 year period near Piedmont. But I don't want to get into them. I want to get into the 37th parallel because I want to give you plenty of time to do
Oh, you're
anything.
fine.
Now, the connections to the 37th parallel, everybody, their longitude, latitude, blah, blah, blah. Whether it is coincidence or not is open to debate, the article reads. But Piedmont, sits on the 37th parallel. That is the 37th degree of latitude. Some people refer to this latitude as the paranormal highway, including alien investigator Chuck Zukowski. He claims to have undertaken investigations in over 1,000 paranormal cases, of which over 200 sit on this very line.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot.
That is a whole lot. At this point, and he might have a point. Area 51 and the alleged Dulce underground base, guess what? Both sit on this parallel. As do several cattle mutilation cases in various spots throughout Colorado. In Taos, New Mexico, Zukowski would investigate a mysterious humming sound that residents claim has been audible. Good gravy. Too much wine, Steve. Has been audible since the early 1990s. And although everybody can hear the anomaly, those that can claim it causes sleep disturbance, dizziness, and even intense headaches. Rumors apparently exist that the hums are the result of construction of an underground facility of alien human intelligence. You're laughing at me because I'm drinking. I see it.
I was actually laughing at Sarah's comment, but
Oh, what's she doing? Ooh, okay. True fact.
I would be asleep at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd be under, like, my big test is can I feel my nose? And I would, after that many, I'd be like, where's my face? Anyway, rumors apparently exist that hums, I've already covered that, are the result of the construction of an underground facility of a human alien intelligence or cooperation. As well as the Piedmont UFO sightings, there are several other UFO incidents, on record along this line. The apparent UFO crash and retrieval of Cape Girardeau in 1941, for example, was on the 37th parallel. Or the Thomas Mantell incident, who some claim crashed his plane during the pursuit of the UFO in 1948, also happened on the 37th parallel. Crazy, right? In May of 2011, this is very recent, in Wichita, Kansas, an anonymous witness would report a strange light, different than a star, as he smoked a cigarette in his yard. It would make a small, rapid movements and was visible for about 10 minutes. Less than 6 months earlier than that, in December of 2010 in Roanoke, Virginia, came another report. This time a dish-shaped orb moving at great pace through the clouds. The craft was silent and would glow blue as it changed altitude. So, what do you guys think about the 37th parallel? That's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that you can attribute to the parallels, longitude and latitude, are what some people call ley lines. Many of the pyramids are on these same lines. They're interconnected throughout the world by a degree of longitude or latitude. And a lot of people think that those became pathways. If you believe the theory that pyramids were energy features for alien ships, it's very easy to see why. They were easy to find on the planet that you had no idea where you'd find them. But that's my story.
Those ley lines are really interesting when you get into that.
Oh yeah, I mean Stonehenge, Easter Island,
Yes,
all of these
all
are
of
on the same
That's wild.
and it's like
is.
what? The pyramids in Giza are on the same lines as some of the pyramids down in Central South America. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, it gets to where you just can't deny this stuff anymore. It's just
Sure you can. It's a balloon. The government does it with no problem, right?
You know what's awesome?
What's that?
Is I feel like as we've done this more and more, you've become more and more believing in.
I've always believed, here's what I believe. I believe about 90% is total bullshit. I believe about 5% is questionable. Maybe 6 or 7. But there's that 2 or 3% that no matter how hard you dig, how much you try, you can't explain away.
You think it's that low?
I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I
You're,
believe
you're
that
saying like majority is probably BS.
either BS or there
Just
are some that are balloons.
misidentification. Oh, it really was a balloon. You know?
Absolutely. We know.
And I get where you say that. If the government is testing a high altitude balloon, here's another example, a recent example. The Nighthawk fighter, the first stealth fighter, the F-117. If you saw that before it was announced, that looks very much like an alien.
Sure.
And guess where it was test flighted? Area 51. They did all the precursor, all the test flighting over the Nevada test range to make sure that the plane was ready to go. And when Desert Storm came around, they were like, oh, by the way, look what we got that you can't see on radar. Boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
And if you would have saw that, if you'd have been one of the guys standing out there on the hill way away with binoculars, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't look like any normal airplane. Same example, the B-2 stealth bomber. If you saw that before they announced that, holy shit. You know, that's...
And this is...
Oh, that was sketty. I'm sorry. Anytime... Okay, so let me... You're going to hear that on the show. So let me just... So my dog's sketty anytime there's a fire department. She won't do it with police or ambulance, but if the fire trucks go by, she has to howl
Join in.
with them.
So she can differentiate between.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it's a because fire trucks usually have that lower,
Yeah,
siren. She gets right in with that. The police, the ambulance, she didn't care about. But
that's awesome.
if you'd seen those around Groom Lake, you would think that that's an alien ship.
Yeah.
But once you know what it is, then it's not. So I agree with Jerry. There's a lot of things that we're going to see out there that doesn't.
There's a reason that it's called UFOs originally. Now
Right.
they're
UFOs.
just identified
Yeah.
flying object.
Yeah.
There's a ton that's unidentified. Back to what we were talking a few weeks ago, when it's military related is when the government should lie. Right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I don't want other countries
Yes,
knowing.
we don't
what
want to
have.
tell
Yeah, that's
the world
makes sense.
what we've got.
But
But not every time, like this Canadian, when there's an unknown object and they ask the U.S. for help in identifying, and we end up shooting it down, and they're sitting here. Well, we can't really tell them the truth. That's the problem. We know they've been doing it forever. They're never honest with us.
Yeah, it's.
I just noted. I pulled up the map of the 37th parallel.
Sure.
Apparently, we used it to determine states.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Look at Utah, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Kansas, Oklahoma, almost Arkansas and Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina are all on the 37th parallel.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
Isn't that-
wild. Yeah.
That had to be intentional. I've never heard it, but that can't be a coincidence.
It can't be. I don't
No.
think. And the weird thing is that was done before any of this came out.
Oh, yeah, way before.
You know what I'm saying? It was just, we'll just put some lines right here. That's a little weird to me.
It is.
Just to be honest, it's almost so coincidental that it can't be coincidental.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did you happen to map it for the world?
No.
I would be interested to see what other sites are on the 37th around the world. Brett, what's your story about tonight, bud?
So you gave a good segue. So talking about, looking up in the sky and not really knowing what you're seeing, like could be some advanced technology that we've never seen before. So my story is from the late 1800s, the end of the 1800s, really. So from late 1896 to mid 1897. So thousands of people across the United States during this time claim to have...
Jerry, show that line to the camera. Sorry.
They claim to observe unidentified flying lights. But as you go into more detailed accounts, they reported actual airborne aircraft that's comparable to an airship. So airship is just like the Hindenburg, and I'll kind of get into the timeline of when those came into existence. But yeah, if you want to look at the 37.
Yeah, that's the 37th
I don't think it's
parallel.
going to see very good.
Probably not.
If
You just Google.
Send it to me. I'll make a note to put that in the video.
Okay.
But yeah, so through this time period, there was tons of accounts of people seeing these unidentified flying objects. Some argue that mystery airships were unlikely to represent test flights of genuine airships, as there is no record of successful long-range flight during that period. We'll get into more of that here in a second. Initially, journalists didn't take the reports seriously, as kind of happens today. But as sightings continued, several newspapers began covering the story. A lot of these believers were openly mocked. So here, even back in this time, of course, we're really only recently getting into a period where belief in aliens is not something to be mocked or ridiculed. But really, what would you say? Probably in the last 20 years, it's become more mainstream, I would think.
Oh, I'm sure. Dramatically so.
Basically, that whole period before then, it's really been something to be embarrassed of, almost. This story seemed to disappear from public consciousness after a while, and was mostly forgotten until in the 1960s, newspaper reports were rediscovered, and this story kind of resurfaced. The best known of the waves began in California in 1896, and then reports and accounts of similar sightings came from other areas. They started to spread more towards the eastern part of the United States. A historian named Mike Dash, he described and summarized the events of 1896 to 1897, saying that the general conclusion of investigators was that a considerable number of the simpler sightings were misidentification of planets and stars, kind of like what we were saying, and a large number of the more complex were the result of hoaxes and practical jokes. However, a small residuum remains perplexing. So exactly what you were saying just before, that there is a small amount that it's really hard to explain. So one story that stands out during this period was from November 19th, 1896 edition of the Stockton, California Daily Mail. This featured one of the earliest accounts of an alleged alien aircraft sighting. Colonel H.G. Shaw claimed that while driving his buggy through the countryside of Lodi near Stockton, he came across what appeared to be a landed spacecraft. Now, this is one thing when I was reading this story. How does he know what a spacecraft is? We haven't even invented the airplane at this point, and I'll get into those dates here in a second. But he probably didn't describe it as a spacecraft, but later on the interpretation was.
Well, it's the same thing with the Bible. You know, they describe what they think.
Right.
You know, what with the words that they can describe with what they saw.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
As Jerry has told us often, you know, when he was preparing for the flood, you know.
I don't remember your name being in there. Did you change your name at some point?
He was the
Apparently
guy that hit. He was like under the hay.
Oh, I gotcha.
In the hippo stall.
Ooh, hippos. That's a dangerous animal to be a part of, I tell you what. I'm surprised you lived through that.
apparently I was one of Noah's sons, right? That's all that was on
No,
there.
no,
Noah.
no. You hid. in
Oh,
the
okay.
house.
so
Okay.
they forgot. They didn't
So
put you in
that's
there.
why my name's not in the Bible.
Yeah, that's why.
Gotcha.
It's okay. I mean, we like you regardless. We're glad you made it.
Well,
we were
thank you.
pulling for you.
So Shaw described it as having a metallic surface. Heard that before. Which was completely featureless. Again, another
Yep.
thing we've heard before. Apart from a rudder and pointed ends. He estimated a diameter of 25 feet, and that 3 slender 7-foot tall extraterrestrials were said to approach from the craft while emitting a strange warbling noise. So, the fact that he gives us a diameter means that it's somewhat circular. Again, very similar to things that we've seen. Now, the one thing that's different, usually when people are saying that they've seen these extraterrestrials, they're usually like 3 to 4 feet tall. So this 7-foot tall is something that I haven't really seen before.
Tall whites.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. There's the grays, which are small, 3 to 4 feet. Tall whites, and this Jerry's going to laugh at me because this gets down to some of the rabbit holes that I fall into. Tall whites are the ones that are actually like. So the grays are drones or clones. They are the worker bees, if you will.
I got you.
The tall whites are the ones that actually are the brains behind the organization. When people talk about abductions and
That's exactly what I'm getting into.
and medical probing and all of the
Yeah.
medical procedures, those are all done by tall whites.
Okay, well, great.
How about that?
Great
boys?
segue. So the beings examined Shaw's buggy and then tried to physically force him to accompany them back to the airship. The aliens were said to give up after realizing they lacked the physical strength to force Shaw aboard. 7-foot beings, they got to be pretty strong. So this guy must have been a pretty big force. Also, probably the late 1800s, they were probably a little stronger than the dudes we got walking around here in early
Probably.
2000s.
Safe to say.
They boarded their ship, which lifted off to the ground and sped out of sight. Shaw believed that the beings were Martians sent to kidnap an Earthling for unknowable, potential nefarious purposes. Now, a lot of these, I was reading through a lot of these sightings. A lot of them claim to be Martians, which makes sense because, as everybody knows, Mars is one of the closer planets to Earth. So if you're going to say, oh, where they're from, they're either from, if you were going to suspect they're from somewhere, you're going to say they're from the moon or if they're from Mars or something like that.
Oh, guys. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
But I want to do a show about the moon soon.
Okay. So this has been seen by some as an early abduction attempt. It is possibly the first published account of explicitly extraterrestrial beings attempting to abduct humans and force them into their spacecraft. So again, this is a time where science fiction movies didn't exist. Like I can somewhat understand. Even the 40s, that was before science fiction, really. But as time goes on, you kind of have science fiction influencing a lot of this,
Sure.
a lot of this stuff. This was before all of that. Like airplanes didn't even exist at this point.
Can you imagine what it would be like to see something? Not to derail the conversation. We have paintings from the 1700s depicting things flying in the air.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what that would be like to try to describe something flying in the air when we don't even have airplanes?
There's cave drawings
Yes.
from thousands of
Yeah.
years ago.
Have you all seen Star Trek Into Darkness?
Yes.
I don't
They,
think
they
so.
do a good job of this at the beginning, where the Enterprise is in this planet. They're about to be destroyed by a volcano, so they save the planet, but in the process, these primitive beings who hasn't even invented the wheel, they see the Enterprise and they start almost worshiping the ship. But anyway, so to continue on, the mystery light reappeared over Sacramento on the evening of November 22nd, 1896. Among the observers were Sacramento's deputy sheriff and a district attorney. Again, these are two reliable witnesses. These witnesses described the light as being twice as bright as a typical arc light. And later that same evening, the light was also seen over Folsom, San Francisco, Oakland, Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Sebastopol, Modesto, Mantua, and several other cities, and was reportedly viewed by at least several hundred witnesses, including the domestic staff of San Francisco Mayor Adolf Sutro. So,
It's a lot of people.
it's a lot of
A
people.
lot of witnesses.
It's a lot of witnesses, and this is the late 1800s. So again, this is not something that wasn't popping up on social media, and people were being like, "Oh, I saw it too." You know, like this was something that these people wouldn't have been communicating.
That's right.
You know, they're far apart. They're horse and buggy. I mean, they're days apart. So for them to all be seeing the similar thing is pretty
Says
amazing.
a lot. Absolutely.
Just to go through some dates for you, just to give the time period some context. 1783, the Multiplier brothers invented the hot air balloon. 1852, French engineer Henry Giffard built and flew the first steam-powered steerable airship. 1895, Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin patented the Zeppelin airship. 1917, the DN-1 blimp made its first flight. So again, this was 20 years after these sightings.
Yep.
It made its first flight, but was damaged and scrapped after flight tests. So it didn't even make it through its first flight. And in 1903, Wilbur and Orville Wright invented the first successful airplane. So at this time, nobody was seeing anything flying through the air. So the fact that anybody, especially these reliable witnesses, saw anything is pretty amazing. And again, newspapers reported on this, so we were able to, uncover these reportings and these witnesses.
What does this remind you of? Not the incident, but the witnesses, the number, the area. Something you covered a long time ago, Phoenix Lights. That's what it made me think of. There's no way you can dispute this.
Right.
Literally no way.
That and several of the people we interviewed that were talking about Central Ohio around Wright Pat, same thing.
Yeah.
V-shaped lights, completely silent,
Stationary,
stationary,
and then-
or very slow moving, and then
suddenly.
And when you get into these, you just start connecting the dots. Of like, there's so much similarity between. Because if you think of like all these people are just making stuff up. I mean, this is the late 1800s. And
You're right.
They're saying
There's literally no way for this many people and this spread out of an area to make up the same story in a short time span. We did not have the methods of communication for them to be able to get their stories linked. It couldn't have happened.
As Jerry always says, you can't get 3 people to commit to the same story,
And
let
stick with
alone
it.
hundreds.
Yeah. So
This is a good story, Brett.
oh yeah, I was yeah, it was pretty interesting.
And
Very.
these are the kinds of stories that I really dig covering. And my story has some unfortunate names in it, unfortunately, and my 12-year-old self couldn't help myself. Sorry.
Well,
No, that was intentional. Whoever wrote that, there's too many. That was intentional.
But
Yeah,
the
that
whole,
was-
the whole
Had to be.
point
some of that
was,
wording was pretty.
well, it worked. Okay, so it worked.
Yeah.
But the truth is still the truth. These stories from multiple people in times like, as Brett's story shows, that we didn't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
You know, even in mine in the 70s, we had stuff to compare it to. But the only stationary objects that could float would be helicopters, and they're very loud. And multiple witnesses said there was 0 sound.
Right.
You know, or a whoosh sound at the most. Now, was her so let's just take that one lady out. Okay, that's one person who heard something over hundreds that didn't.
Yeah, we just keep saying the same thing, and tell you what, man, Bob Lazar.
These I believe, yours I believe, yours I believe, Bob
don't
Lazar
believe this
not
Bob
so
Lazar?
much. The guy he's lied too much. He's kind of like the government. There's too many things that we know that he's not been truthful on for me to, somewhere along the line, it's a matter of, well, you've destroyed credibility, so I don't know when to believe you and when not to. If you go to claim you went to 2 different universities and you can't find one student that says you were there, you can't find one professor that says you were there.
Let me tell you, money would convince me to do a lot of things.
Every student, all 25,000.
I mean, to be fair though, I went to UK and I probably couldn't name or point out a lot of the students that I went to school with.
Sure. Could you give me 10? I was at
Maybe.
UK in the mid 80s. I started in fall of 83, and
He's
I can
talking
give you
about
more than
1880. So just so
I
there's
can
no
give you more than 10 today. So
I mean, I
it's
could
a-
probably give you 10.
for a guy that's that intelligent and he can't name me one
Right.
student and tell me one party he went to, one conversation he had with one student. So he lied about his education. We know that. Neither school says, why would the universities lie?
Well,
They get a lot of federal funding.
Really? So every professor there, his job is dependent upon him going along with it. Once again, you can't get 3 people at one house at Thanksgiving dinner to go
I
along with the same
understand.
story.
I'm just saying the things that Bob Lazar said are the things that
He's a very intelligent dude.
we
made
are
up some incredible
learning
stories.
that is true right now.
There's a lot of what he said is
Element
true.
115
right, that we
exists.
didn't know then. That's the thing with Bob Lazar is like he predicted too much.
Yeah.
He's got
To
some
be-
amazing stories, and part of it had to have
Even
happened.
if he fabricated all of that to get this job, right? The stories that he has and the technology that he's talking about while he was there for the brief time. Even he said he was there a very short
But
time.
there's, go ahead.
There's been so much to come to it now, and it's like, oh, maybe Bob Lazar was right. Otherwise, Brett and I wouldn't be keep talking about it.
But
Well, even
you're
that guy,
ignoring
even that
the
guy on
fact.
Joe Rogan was like, "Man, Bob Lazar made some good guesses."
Yeah, he did. Here's
And
the
this is the
flip
guy
side.
that's in the know.
Here's the flip
Right.
side. Much of the things that he says, physicists say, is not even in the realm of possibility. So, don't take my word. Don't take Joe Rogan's word. Go to the experts, the physicists, and you're right. Some of the stuff he said was either right or extremely revolutionary and forward thinking. Much of it, the experts say, isn't even remotely possible. And that's from many, many physicists. You
Well, to
can't
be fair,
discount all of that.
physicists, a lot of the physicists back in that time, especially, thought that this would be a joke. I remember there was a physicist. He was an astronomer, and he was looking for planets. He was looking for other planets that were orbiting around other suns, and this was something that was equivalent to looking for aliens.
Okay.
Like, and that's what he said. He was basically a laughing stock. Well, he went to the observatory in Hawaii. I can't remember what it's called, but he basically had a theory where if he basically used, I can't remember. I'm butchering this story. He basically found planet after planet. I can't remember the method he used, but basically he was able to figure out like that if the light from the planet like was getting brighter, it was moving towards us, and then if it was going dimmer, it was moving away, and you could track it around a known star. And basically, he was finding planets all over the place. So this was something that physicists didn't think, or physicists and astronomers were like, "Oh, this is a joke." But this guy was just finding them all over the place, and now we believe that there's tons of planets around billions and billions of stars.
Right.
So just because the physicists say that, "Oh, well, this isn't possible," doesn't necessarily. I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to their expertise. They obviously know a lot more than me, but just because they say it's one way doesn't mean it
So
necessarily.
you would take this guy's word, who has no
But
proof
there's
of
so
his
much
education.
other validation of his story.
No, hold on. You would take this guy's word over all physicists?
I wouldn't say all.
Google sometime. Do physicists agree with Bob Lazar?
Well, and to be fair, all the things that he described is physically impossible according to everything we believe. So,
However,
Everything?
I mean,
wouldn't say
pretty much.
everything.
I mean,
Go
we,
ahead.
he was talking about wormhole technology back then. We now believe that wormhole technology actually can work. We think that that's going to be our
I don't
future.
think physicists ever said that he was wrong in that aspect.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There was a lot of stuff that he said that the physicists didn't disagree with.
I'm not.
They said that element 115 didn't exist. It exists. We can't make it work, but it doesn't mean
But
that
there's
it doesn't
also-
exist.
What's the
so
highest
many-
number that we're up to?
116, 117 at the moment?
I was thinking it was 118 or 19.
Maybe.
Guess what? Element 124 exists.
Yeah, but Jerry, you don't understand how it exists.
Did I just become
118.
118? Did I just become a genius?
No,
Because I
you didn't
prophesied
give
this?
an example of how the technology was working around that. And
They're using
And-
it for
most of the power plants that Bob Lazar talked about involve spin. Most of the power plants of our future in the world will be
every
involving
physicist
spin.
says that his description of propulsion systems is impossible.
Exactly. But but everything that we see in all the videos is like, man, that looks impossible.
Every physicist says he's full of crap.
If I was
Everyone-
alive, and this is all I'm going to say about this, and we're going to do our thumbs up. If I were alive in we'll say 1850, and you told me that 300 people were going to get in a steel can and fly from one side of the country to the other in the air, I would call you crazy.
Most scientists would have said it will happen shortly.
In 1850, no way.
The vast majority of scientists would have said that.
I don't.
Vast majority.
If you were alive during the Black Plague, do you think that most scientists would say, "Well, at some point, this is all going to go away, and we'll have a shot you can take
Well,
for that"?
at one point they believed that
What-
couldn't go past a human being couldn't go past 25 miles an hour.
And
we-
especially a woman, because women were especially susceptible to going.
Most
very
scientists
fast.
thought this?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when
I don't think scientists ever thought
I think it was when trains
I
were
think
invented.
that
They
there
were
was-
like, oh, we can't go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad that we're on the same page.
Most scientists said this, or there's a couple that said this.
I mean, I have not researched this in advance.
Here's
I
my
don't know.
here's my problem
I'm
with
gonna
you
look it
guys
up,
and
though.
many of your theories. You have no problem spending umpteen hours going down rabbit holes and believing crazy wild stories. When I ask you for proof,
I'm
wait a
looking
minute,
for it.
hold on. How many weeks has it been since the email that I sent that I've yet to hear a chirp from either one of you? And I give you proof after proof. You have time to go down the wormholes. You have zero time to do
Jerry,
research.
are
on
you
the
telling
legitimate
me
side.
that in medieval times, when we barely
What does medieval times have to do with Bob Lazar?
I'm getting ready to show
Okay.
you. In medieval times, when caltrops and catapults were the weapons of the future, if somebody came to you and said, "We're going to have a weapon that can wipe out entire cities at some point. In fact, we're going to have enough of those weapons that we can decimate the entire earthly population," you would have thought I was the craziest SOB on the planet.
So are you going to get to the Bob Lazar connection?
Yes,
Yeah.
because Bob Lazar is talking about things that we would have been talking about to the people during the medieval times.
Bob Lazar.
There's no connection with the future of what we don't even understand and the concepts that we don't wrap our head around. And I'm taking this as Bob Lazar talking about specifically the 4 very specific alien craft he saw. If those are true, and that's a big if, and I'll give you that. But if
That's my whole
true-
point.
but you don't understand the fact that anything above the Chinese, when they invented freaking fireworks and gunpowder, when they came to the medieval times and said, "Hey, we got gunpowder," that would have been unheard of.
So
Just
when
really-
It's the exact same. It's the same.
It's got nothing. It's not related at all.
I think it's exactly
It's not
irrelevant.
when trains were first invented, which was the early 1800s, many scientists and people believed that humans could not tolerate speeds much above 20 to 30 miles per hour. Some feared that traveling at such speeds would cause unconsciousness or even death due to the perceived extreme stress on the body from the rapid movement. So,
Question for you, gentlemen. Bob Lazar was a low-level employee when he was in a court case,
I don't know why he
and
hates Bob Lazar so much.
he does not like this guy.
I don't know why you guys have a problem with facts. Here's some facts.
Please.
When he was,
Bathe us in your facts. Oh,
well, I have before, and you had no answer then, so I assume you haven't done any research and won't give me any now because you never research anything unless it's a rabbit hole. But Bob Lazar was in a court case, and had claimed that he had worked for the United States government extensively, He was asked to provide proof to the court. He had one W-4 for $800 and something. He was a low-level, short-term employee that, according to him, was on a large group. He was part of a large group. He never operated by himself. Where is one person that worked with him that could substantiate anything he said?
Jerry, I'll answer your question with a question.
So
I would
you're not
like-
going to.
No, I'm absolutely going to.
Okay.
I would absolutely love for you to produce one pilot's name, one pilot that pilots a flight for Janet. Please.
I've never heard of Janet.
Janet is the airline that doesn't exist, that flies hundreds of flights every day out of Las Vegas Airport. Janet, you want to stands for? The Janet Terminal? Just another I forget the E.
And what does
Transport.
that have to do with the people that Bob Lazar worked with?
The exact same thing. Because when you work on top secret and above clearances, you're not allowed, even if I was your best friend, Jerry, and me and you've been friends for almost 40 years, 30, 40 years. If me and you were best friends and we were in a top secret and you decided to bolt and to start talking about whatever it is we're working on, I can't acknowledge you.
Right.
For fear of myself, my pension, my life, my family,
Right.
depending on I can't.
Has
I
any of
have
that
to-
happened to Bob Lazar? No, nothing.
You don't
Not
know that, though. That's what I'm saying.
Wait a minute. You said that for fear of you, your life, your family's life. Has any of that happened to Bob Lazar? No.
No, because of the exact reason that Bob Lazar went public in the first place.
Well, if you take what he says to be fact, apparently all of his educational records were wiped, and
Along with
there's
every
newspaper
person
articles,
he went to school with.
There's newspaper articles that claim he was there.
There are newspaper articles that claimed he was in school at a university.
I'm just
I'll have to look
saying.
at it.
No,
Yes,
there's
but
not.
yes, there
No,
is.
there's
I'm
not.
just saying, Jerry. If you were a co-worker of Edward Snowden,
Right.
you can't
Many,
say
many have come out and corroborated to a large extent everything he said. Many.
I'm just saying. If
Also,
you're
I'm
Janet, just so you all know, just another non-existent terminal.
non-existent, that was the word.
I remember when.
And I
talked
don't
about
know
it
the
before.
name of not one pilot. And frankly, you have to.
I don't know the name of one pilot for Southwest.
Right.
I only know the name of one pilot for any airline, and that's because he's your father-in-law.
That doesn't
And he
matter.
flies to
The point
countries.
is, you can look and find that information. You can't on Janet. Janet doesn't exist. It's in a terminal that doesn't exist.
That's got nothing
if you
to do
go
with
to
why
Las Vegas,
one simple person has corroborated anything that he saw. Of all the people on their deathbed, they don't tell their wife. They don't write something down to be released when they're dead and gone. This happened many, many years ago.
just saying.
They can't do anything when you're dead, Steve.
I
One
understand.
person hasn't left a deathbed confessional. Bob Lazar is right. I was there. I saw it. Not one person.
I'm just saying.
Exactly. I'm just saying. Not one person to corroborate anything that he said.
Well, you're the reason Bob Lazar refuses our show.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying.
We almost had him
Just-
too, and then he listened. And he was like, "I don't like that Jerry."
I know, right? That Jerry guy's a dick.
If you guys had 1/10 the time to look into facts instead of rabbit holes and conspiracy theories, you all would
I
be-
do facts, but I also have
Dangerous.
this thing. Facts are one thing, and I get that. Facts mean a lot. But guess what? So does my gut. And my
Right.
gut tells
Well, when
me
you listen to-
everything that Bob Lazar says, 90% of it is accurate.
No,
He's
not
very
nearly.
Why
intelligent.
does he have any? He did not make any. He has not made any actual money. You know, he still lives in a very modest home. He still drives a very modest car.
And if anything, he's been bothered by all these crazy UFO conspiracy
It
theories.
has
totally agree with
ruined his life.
It hasn't ruined his
It's,
life.
it, one, I mean, I don't want to go
It's not
through.
helped it at all. I'm not saying
We
that.
need to revisit the Bob Lazar episode.
Well, I think we just did.
I mean-
It's the same.
I
as
mean, he
the
predicted
same.
the hand. What was the
Yeah,
the hand scanner that
No, he worked
that
there. He
apparently
worked at
didn't
this place.
exist?
No, it did exist.
Well, I'm just saying it didn't exist at the time when he came
No,
out and said
it did
it.
exist. at
Right,
the
but
time.
it did. Right, it came out later that it
I
existed.
just want to say this,
Right.
and then we've got to stop the
Yeah. What time are we at?
show. We're way over, and that's okay. It's our show. But here's the thing: 10% of everything you hear in the public has some sort of government fingerprints all over it. I firmly believe it, if not more. There is government plants in every single facet of our community, derived, and their main goal is to make us believe or disbelieve whatever it is they want us to disbelieve. Be it Joe Biden being competent or Donald Trump being stupid and arrogant, whatever the case is, who cares? But there is at least 10%. And I have to think, just from what I've seen with my own eyes, that Bob Lazar is at least falls into the category of I have to listen with open ears. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Back to what your topic. Thumbs up, thumbs down. More coverage or less.
I mean, I would give it a thumbs up just because of the time period and what they had to base it on and the amount of witnesses that it had. So yeah, I would give it 2 thumbs up.
I would absolutely agree. If you're riding a buggy and
Completely
you see
agree.
a thing flying, that's a horseshit thing.
Completely agree.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Brett, Jerry, on the I've lost my page. I apologize. On your story tonight, Jerry, I really
Would I
enjoyed
give it a thumbs up or thumbs down?
thumbs up, thumbs down.
For Captain Mantell, I don't know we're ever going to find anything else out. I really don't. If I thought that more investigation, more news coverage would help in any way, because I think it's very questionable. I just don't think that at this point in time, it's 50, 76 years old. I think there's zero chance of us finding out more
You
information.
think zero? So here's what I'm thinking.
The
is-
people, to think about, if you were grown, you were at least 18, and it happened 70, 80, mid-90s, there's no one alive from that time
But
period.
I'm sure he's got. Did he have kids? I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
It was 25. I don't know.
Even if he didn't have kids, he was obviously a decorated pilot. He was worthy of a better death than just chasing a balloon down that he was just hallucinating.
I think that's bullcrap. I don't
So-
think it was a balloon at all.
I think that if the government ever does come out and say, "Hey, we have all this information, we've lied to you this whole time," I think this is one thing that they should clarify. Hey, we lied about this too. But
If that's the case and there's more information, I would agree. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I
at
wouldn't
this
say
point.
that. I wouldn't say never, but I would give it 2 thumbs up just because this is another story that with a super credible source.
I want to give it a thumbs up too, not for that reason, but for the fact that if for no other reason, this decorated pilot, a service member
Right.
of our country, needs not be forgotten. He didn't see a balloon.
I agree with that.
He wouldn't.
was not a
He
balloon.
wouldn't go to the. I mean, this is a decorated pilot, 3,000 combat hours. He knows the plane's limits. He knows his limits. He's not going to challenge
For a
those
balloon.
limits for a
I
freaking balloon.
totally agree.
And
with
these pilots are very cocky. I mean, if you read like
Oh,
John,
yeah.
John Boyd, if you're
I mean,
about
all
him,
the pilots I know are cocky. I'm just kidding, Mike. Just kidding, Steph.
but yeah, he was probably like,
Chris.
"Oh, I can push it. I can push it. I
Yeah.
can push myself." And anyways,
It
yeah.
cost
Again,
him
it's
his
it's a
In the real world, you don't do that. In
Yeah.
the real world, you have very specific safety protocols that you're going to do. Unless you have a Japanese zero on your tail, you're not going to push those.
and this dude
limits.
put 3,000 hours of combat.
Yeah.
This dude he felt he was invincible, and he had good reason to be honest. He's probably been through it way more than chasing whatever this was down.
yeah. I agree.
But I agree. It was interesting enough for him to go beyond what was safe, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, way beyond. Not just like, I mean, 2 of his counterparts were like, no, I'm not going that high.
They bailed
I
out.
know better. Yeah, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I have a family to go home to.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to press the
And they
limit. I want
weren't
to see what it
leaving
is.
to leave. They were leaving to go to the base to get oxygen masks because their original training mission didn't need it. They didn't have it. They were saying, we're coming back, and did come back. But the object was gone, and he had crashed at that point. So
Crazy,
I
right?
get it. I just, sadly, I don't think, my opinion is we're probably not going to come out with more information.
Probably not. Most people have swept this under the rug
Yep.
like everything else, but I would like for it to.
So, big time. He very deserving.
What about Coach Bone and the Piedmont basketball team?
It's kind of like so many witnesses, it's impossible to write it off. So from that, yeah, I would give it a thumbs up. I think it
would
needs more
agree.
coverage.
Any time that you have that many witnesses that are all saying the same thing, it's if it was false, one of those people are going to come out
Absolutely, sooner or later.
and whistleblow.
Sooner or later.
Especially when they're going to be thought of as crazy. It's not going to be accepted by
That's
anyone.
not something you come out with unless you're damn sure you
Right.
know it.
Right.
You know, and I can actually relate with this because of Tommy and I's experience down on his farm. You know, you don't start talking about crazy like that unless you know. You know what I mean? Because I'm not crazy. I might have a little too much wine occasionally, but we were teenagers. We weren't drinking back then.
Yeah.
What's what is what. So I agree. I think that anytime you have multiple witnesses, anytime, and you talk about the 37th parallel and how long that goes and why and what all's attached to that, that's pretty impressive stuff. That's not you can do coincidence for a couple of things, but you can't do coincidence for a plethora of things.
Yeah.
Anything.
No, I agree. Thumbs up for me.
What about you, Jerry? Anything else?
Nope.
Nothing? Awesome.
Enjoyed the show.
No, it's
Me
been
too.
super fun. And I tell you what, it's been really fun
Yeah,
interacting on Twitch.
absolutely. I really like Twitch. I dig that.
I do too.
Twitch is cool. Very, very cool.
Tonight we're going to talk about the rake. The Grand Canyon region is a vast landscape that, while it is immensely beautiful to visit, it's largely inhospitable to human habitation. While there are some trails in the canyon, many parts of the landscape are completely inaccessible. Is it possible that an ancient creature lives in the caves and caverns that dot the side of the canyon walls? In the tunnels that wind through the earth beneath the canyon? Though no one has provided conclusive evidence of the beast, in September of 2014, filmmaker and documentarian Bill Brock and his team traveled to Peach Springs, Arizona, to a cave called the Grand Canyon Caverns. Their mission? Follow up on whispers and rumors of a monster called the Rake that is said to live near the Grand Canyon. Though they did not find evidence of the creature, but their film is certainly worth watching. According to eyewitness reports from locals in Peach Springs, Arizona, who say they've seen the rake, the beast is 5 feet tall, with sharp claws, hairless, with gray skin, eyes that glow in the dark, and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Some people say the rake has the power to turn on or turn off electricity, and many report that the creature has a thirst for violence and scurries through the dark on all fours, howling at anyone it sees. If you've been in Arizona and you've been around a cave and you've heard something howling, could it have been the mysterious rake?
Tune in next week where we talk about the hoe.